politicians into question, Obani. If the politicians we have currently are, as far as I can see, they're trying to change the system slowly, surely, slowly but surely, like gradually, right? Which is fine for them because now I get it, they are part of the elite now. You went from Robben Island to a house in Santon. You're good, right? Right? Now the question is everybody else who never was on Robben Island. So granted, you might be like you suffered more than the people, and that's always open to debate, bro. Right? Granted, or having your freedom taken away is rough, né? Granted, or being isolated and being subjected to hard physical labor is rough, right? But living in a situation where you're constantly reminded that you are less, not even less than a citizen, you're less than a human being, right? Because I suppose when they have you in an isolated situation, they can work on your individual psychology. But then when you have to be around your people, like you're free, you're supposedly free, but everywhere you go, you're reminded already, you don't deserve the best. Like this country isn't for you. You are here in this country to work for whatever we say we're willing to pay you. I think that might be even more psychologically damaging. You understand? So then, sharp. Okay, so even if you are one of those leaders and you went to Robben Island and you feel like this is a rehabilitation for me, the question is, what's rehabilitation for all these other people who've had their humanity diminished for their entire lives? For as long as they've been alive, they felt like they're less than human. Or, you know what I'm saying? What is the rehabilitation for that? And those are the type of politicians we need, I guess, or people who are thinking like that is rehabilitation, because the reality of it is until we take colonialism and apartheid as a scar on us as a people, and therefore try to heal it, like work on it as if we're trying to heal. You know what I'm saying? Like what Germany went through after Nazism. They changed their whole society. They did basically everything that they could to try and erase the effects of Nazism. Us as a country, I think we've never really had a full, a well-detailed plan as to how are we going to rehabilitate a country as psychologically scarred as ours. Because, like I've said before, your psychology goes directly with your productivity. You know what I'm saying? For as long as you don't feel like a citizen, you're always going to be waiting for a government handout, or you're going to be willing to accept shitty working conditions and low pay, right? Or you're going to be hoping and praying that one day you'll close on a lotto. Or you're going to be easy prey for snake oil salesmen / pastors who are going to be selling you real. If you tithe to me, soon your life will be fine. Your life will be great. Or this is because you're like PTSD is real, y'all, and the PTSD that we are going through as a society as a result of colonialism and apartheid, I feel like it's something that our politicians are not trying to deal with directly. Like here and there, you hear things like land redistribution or reappropriation without compensation, right? And these things sound like good ideas and they sound like they could address something. But I feel like for me, it has to be a holistic approach. Or okay, how do we and we have to put it in those terms, in those raw terms, or how do we take our people from Kaffers to citizens in a real meaningful way? And unfortunately, I'm not seeing politicians that are talking like that. And that I suppose is one thing that we can actually enforce in terms of living in a democracy. Is who are we voting for and why are we voting for them? If they're not, they're not talking the talk that we need to hear.
Yeah. I think the challenge is like when people can't look at these things, when people can't get a bird's eye view, when people can't or don't even know who to blame, who's at fault for, services not getting to them or things like that. It becomes difficult to enforce, to stand on their rights. So I think probably like education is like the number one most important like revolution of our lifetime, is to make sure as many of our brothers and sisters are educated as possible. There's an entrepreneur, his name is Naval Ravikant. I think I've talked about him before, but I didn't say his name because I didn't know his name at the time. But he was basically saying like if everyone on the planet was just educated, do you know what I'm saying, in a technical skill, like the generation where every single human has like a little bit of technical expertise, not like genius level, just like regular entry level technical expertise. You can go in and get a junior technical job, right? in a generation, people would not be working. Like the human race would be retired, because we would be able to create systems and mechanics and robots that do all of that. Do you know what I'm saying? Then we'd have to ask ourselves, what creativity do we want to get into? What causes do we believe in? Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So for me, like in terms of a political system, I think that paints like a view of a future that I want to aim for, that I want to tackle, to make sure that everyone is educated enough so that we basically bring the pyramid down. Do you know
so everybody in society is a problem solver, basically.
Exactly. Everyone is a problem solver, and for one generation, we solve all of the problems that keep us waking up in the morning, that keep us on a hamster wheel. You understand? On the hamster wheel of that capitalism in its current iteration forces people into. And I don't want it to sound like we're demonizing capitalism by any regard, because the moment you start criticizing capitalism, people will start to be like, "Oh, are you a socialist? Are you a capitalist? Look at Russia, it didn't work. Look at Guy, it didn't work. Look at China, blah 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 blah." You know, all of that. But that I don't think that's what any of us are saying here. Like what we're saying here is we can't just with blinkers on and blinders accept that the current form of the democratic political system that we've come into right now is its highest potential. We have to always be looking like, how can we fix this? How can we make it better?
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I want to say that I am like a socialist at heart, right? Like I just can't put it out there. I know people are like, but yeah, I truly believe that like as a community, we can work together and, achieve what's best for the whole community if we work together. I think if we try, I mean, I see with pre-apartheid, pre-colonialism, I see how that worked, for us as Africans. I'm not saying, go all over the world and see how that worked, but in terms of our context, I feel like it worked well. And that's something that we should, explore further and see how we can make it relevant in the world that we live in now. That's what I think. But I just want to go back to what I think you mentioned, the psychology and how, a lot has been done to us. I want to agree completely with that. And I believe that, if a person does not have like faith in themselves, if they don't know who they are, if they don't know, like how to move from A to B, and they're just going about the motions in jail, it's easy for them to get, to not even be productive, to not do anything, because they just, they're floating around, they're not really like planning. They don't know who they are. They don't know their worth. They don't know, they're not even thinking about like legacy, and I think a lot of that stems from that psychological like trauma that we experienced. Our parents experienced that, and that's why you see today parents saying to their kids, "No, you can't do that," or like how do you understand? Is that's how, like that damage that happened then? It's being like it's being imparted on kids now. That's why you see a lot of them, like a lot of us, not doing much. So I think the first step. I'm very unhappy with the fact that it was just the TRC and we're expected to just move forward with our lives. I think I've said this before. I think it's going to need a lot more. It's going to require everyday work. Especially with us that are saying, okay, we're not happy with the situation. We have an opportunity to change it for the next generation. So that we just start like making people understand that this is who you are, this is your value, you can do this, you can do anything, basically, so that the next generation has an opportunity. But if we're not instilling those values, that self-love, it's just going to be, the same thing even for the next generation. So.
Because like you're saying, I feel like that's what's missing on our political agenda, right? Is because the people that put our people in this situation had a very clear plan, right? They thought about it, they planned it out, because Trevor Noah was actually saying, like before they implemented all of the apartheid laws, they went all over the world and checked how, like, what is the most efficient way to make prejudice legal, right? Mm-hmm. So apartheid was like final stage boss of prejudice in law, okay? And that's why it's the craziest of the crazy, and it shocked the world when people found out on how. Even now in the 80s, this is going on for real. So now imagine how like the shock that our psychology went through, that the fact due to the fact that we're living through it. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I'm saying, what if all this energy and time was based, and you must remember the war's always psychological, right? We need to chase the psychology that these people use to create so-called kafirs, right? Right? And then we need our own psychological plan as to how we're going to create citizens, right? Because you realize, okay, the only scar or the gap is that psychological scar. Because you have Africans that come into our country from other parts of Africa and immediately start living like citizens, in the sense that they work, you know what I mean? They have places, like they have homes, like every other citizen. You know what I'm saying? Like they earn, they live, they have kids, they decide what kind of education their children can have or don't have, which are things that regulars or a lot of South Africans don't have because of that psychological scarring. Because somewhere, even if it's deep in the back of their minds, they still feel like Kafirs. And for as long as you feel like a Kafir, then you can accept the worst living conditions. Because what's what? I mean, Ramantaki, what else? Like, and what you're saying now, my love, like what you're saying now really is so important, because even in our own minds, when we say Ramakhwen, in your mind you're like, I'm going to a better place, right? Or if you move out from Kasi and you go live in the suburbs, in your mind you've made it because you've moved further away from the Kafirs, and now you're with the white people. So you understand how deep the scar is, and how much, like, how messed up we are, and why we need the type of leadership that's gonna truly unlock the potential of our country, because our country has so much potential. All the foreign nationals, all the other Africans coming from other countries to live and work in South Africa are showing us what it. Even as a black person in South Africa, right? If your psychology is right, you can live, you can make it, right?